stop me. I'm all the way up. All the way up. All the way up. All the way up. I'm all the way up.
So one night you're lying in bed, you had a nice dinner, maybe it was a little too spicy, so you get a little bit of indigestion, and you're thinking everything's cool. I meditated tonight, I had a great day, I was being of service, and in the middle of the night, something doesn't feel right. You're getting a pressure on your chest, it's undeniable, out of the blue. I just woke you up. You're like, maybe that spicy food was a little spicier than I thought. So you say a little prayer, you invoke your guides, say, oh, protect me, guides, help me get rid of this indigestion so I can go back to bed. And you invoke a little bit of spiritual bypass, right? Say, it's just heartburn. Maybe half an hour goes by, an hour, all of a sudden you're like, oh, all of a sudden it really feels like you're having a heart attack. But are you having a heart attack? How do you know? If you've been on your spiritual path, on your journey, and you've made a lot of changes in your life, you started doing yoga and meditative practices, you've cut down on meats and cheeses, right? And you're going more towards vegetables and raw product versus processed foods. You're making all the right changes. You're exercising regularly now, and you're keeping your mind clear, and positive, and you're doing the inner work, right? You're doing all the shadow work, right? If all those things that are in alignment, and all of a sudden you get something that you're just like, this doesn't feel right, but it doesn't feel like I need to go to the hospital, right? I can get through this. Then it just starts getting a little worse, and then your mind starts taking over, right? You start Googling symptoms of what you are. What could it possibly be? And the more you do that, the more worried you get, right? What do you do? How do you know that it's a heart attack or something, the WebMD, you're being your own doctor? How do you know if you're right? How do you know if it's an ascension symptom? Could it possibly be an ascension symptom and not a medical issue? Let's find out. Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Few Minutes with Marvin. I inspire those who aspire to make positive changes in their lives. And in this video, we're going to explore, is it a heart attack or is it an ascension symptom? And how do you know? How can you tell? What are the signs, right? What are the possible signs that it is a spiritual upgrade versus a medical meltdown, or your body's, is revolting against you. It's not easy to tell. Sometimes it really does feel like you need medical attention. And I'm speaking from experience. A couple of years ago, right before the pandemic, I had been doing a lot of the work, right? Like we all are. Learning, going down rabbit holes, checking out the newest video on this or that, the latest psychic reading, all of those things. I started changing my diet a little bit. So it happened to be on my birthday in 2020 where I had a really good day. And I went to bed fine. And in the middle of the night, I started getting that chest tightness. It woke me up, and I'm like, oh, I'm in good shape. I've lost some weight. I had lost probably about 15 pounds by then. So it has to be, in my mind, and I'm thinking, it has to be something to do with the changes I'm making in my body. And my body's not liking it, and I'll be fine. So I went back to bed, Didn't think twice about it. Then in the middle of the night again, it gets even tighter, and there's a little bit of pain, and I'm like, well, let me look at some options here. So I get on the internet and start looking some things up, and then my mind starts taking over. It's like, yeah, that's what you have. Oh no, it's that thing too, because you feel that, right? So my mind starts racing. So then that's when I start calling in on my guides, on my higher self, saying, give me some clarity. What should I do here? Um, I wasn't thinking it was ascension. I was thinking something out of all the changes I was making, something wasn't happy, right? So I'm trying to do all the work, right? I'm taking a mental note of my body. Where's the pain? Breathing into it. I did all the things that we learn about through our spiritual journey. What to do when you're feeling something, because a pain means something, right? We have to figure it out. What was I doing? Backtracking. What did I eat? And I really couldn't find anything. And I started invoking, the spiritual bypass. It's like it'll go away. I trust myself, but then I had planted that seed of doubt, right? By looking up all the medical things. So, to be on the safe side, I went to the medical center. I drove myself, and it was overnight. It was late, probably 2 or 3 in the morning. So they get me right in. As soon as you talk about heart, right? They get you in. They hook you up to all these monitors and things. And meanwhile, I stayed positive. I was joking, and I was remarking with the nurse about how much weight I've lost and things I'm learning, right? Because now I have all this spiritual knowledge and I want to share it. So I turned it into. I never looked at it as a negative thing. I never worried about whether I was having anything wrong. All my blood work and all came back fine. They just said just rest. So I just decided to rest. Well, cut to a day later, I came across synchronistically, a video on Ascension and symptoms, and I'm like, ooh, that sounds like what I could have had. And then a night later, I had my Kundalini awakening. So that, in essence, that's what it was for me. But it felt real. I felt the pain, and for a minute there, but I thought I need to get myself checked out. I'm, in my 50s, all those things that go through your head and through your mind. But just to be cautious, I went ahead and got myself checked out. Everything was fine. It turned out to be an Ascension symptom. So now that was my first clue. I recognized it, and subsequently, throughout the letter, as I did more work on myself and embodied more spiritual practices, and got my training as a life coach, and all these things, right, coming together, right? Because it's all about putting all the puzzle pieces together. I was doing that. So then when other things came up, a pain here, pain there, I would stop and recognize it first and look into it, and then see what was I doing, right? What spiritually am I doing that's helping me elevate my frequencies? Am I getting DNA upgrades or light code activations? And I started thinking in those terms instead of health issues, because by that point I had really strengthened my immune system with my Wim Hof breathing and cold training exercises, eating. I became a vegetarian at that point, no alcohol. I mean, I'd gotten rid of everything that I thought. So I was healthy. So there were moments where I identified, no, that's an Ascension symptom, right? The tingling in the feet, numbness in the hands sometimes, where you think it's related to a health related issue. Well, I come to realize that they weren't those issues, because I didn't just ignore them. I sat with them, and this time, instead of going to on the internet to look things up, I just sat there and processed it myself. What was I doing? How was I doing it? Was there something I needed to address in the moment? Really, those things really worked. And then choosing not to experience anything harmful, right? In that moment, I work with energy a lot, so I would call in energies, call in a force field of protection, just in case, right? Call in on the guides, just for extra additional support, in case that I'm wrong or I misdiagnose myself. I've got some backup, right? You become confident. You have to stand in your power and your strength and know that nothing's going to harm you. But in those cases too, it turned out to be ascension symptoms, not health issues. So, you go on a couple years later, and something just happened recently to me. And this is after doing all the work. And now, I have very strict rituals and eating habits and practices, and I do my cold training, and I'm think positive. And have I had bumps and bruises? Yes. I had frostbite last winter, and that was real. I did get myself checked out at a local clinic, but she didn't seem too concerned about it, so I didn't concern myself about it. I just did what I needed to do to not exacerbate it, right? Keeping my feet warm, things like that. I just changed what I needed to do, so I kept up with my cold training as well. I didn't let that stop me from cold training, but I took care of it. And about a month and a half, 2 months, it was all gone. My toes were normal, and I never worried about whether my feet were, my toes were going to fall off, even though they were black. And it wasn't spiritual bypass, because I did all the work, and I wasn't concerned about it. But just recently, I had an episode, and again, it happened over the course of an entire day, really. I woke up one Sunday morning, I had to go do some work at a ranch, and when I got there, as I'm pulling into the driveway, I'm feeling a little bit off, feeling my crown, how you get the pressure in your crown, for those of us who work with healing modalities and do a lot of guide work, you get those tingles in your crown and your third eye and your heart chakra. That's the spidey senses, right? I call it. But as I start invoking, things to say, in my mind to soothe myself, to calm myself, to try to figure out what it is, the words that in my thoughts were garbled. They weren't. They're senseless. I wasn't hearing what I was thinking. So I decided to try and speak, and my words, they were garbled. They weren't words at all. And I'm thinking, something doesn't calculate here. At that point, you're thinking, oh, did I just have a seizure, right? That's what most people would rationally think, because that's what we've been programmed to believe. Everything has to have a bad reason to it. So in this case, I invoked spiritual bypass, and I went and did the work. I worked for 2 or 3 hours, and then on my way home, my car was having issues, and I'm thinking, there's something here, right? This pain is bringing me something. So I sat with it and meditated on it, right? And then I decided to take the rest of the day off and just relax. And that day I had to record a video, and I recorded a video, and everything seemed fine, except I still had that pressure in my head all day. So then later that night, I'm thinking, should I be doing something about this? Because the week before was my 2-year anniversary on my Wim Hof breathing, and I celebrated it by stopping my breath for an hour. So then I'm thinking, it's a week later. Did I really mess myself up? Did I get carbon dioxide toxicity somehow? Then I go back to the damn internet and start looking that up, and there's this thing called ICP or something like that, intracranial pressure, and all of a sudden that starts getting into my head, and it's like, man, I because I over oxygenated my brain, I believe, or I thought to be the case. I'm self-diagnosing again, and so I decided, all right, let's go to bed, let's meditate, and the pressure started getting even worse, and then I started getting other symptoms, like my legs started kicking out for no reason, and just odd things. So then I'm like, guides, give me a sign. Should I drive myself to the hospital? My car's been acting up. Hospital's 40 minutes away. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. So I asked for some signs, and I got a couple of signs that were like, yeah, maybe you should go get yourself checked out. And I fought it, but I'm like, all right, I'm going to go. So I got in my car. I got about maybe halfway there, and my car decides I ain't going nowhere else. Not happening. My car died out on me in the middle of a dark highway. Nowhere else. It's 2 in the morning again. I don't know why these things happen overnight, but so what did I do? I was like, well, I got to get a tow now, and then should I still try to go to the hospital? It's like, well, let me call the EMS. So a couple girls came out, they checked me out, and they said, oh, my vitals, everything was fine. I explained to them what I thought my symptoms were based on WebMD. They're like, no, all the tests that we just ran on you don't indicate any of that. So then it just hit me. It's like, another Ascension symptom that I misdiagnosed. But I had a nice conversation with them. They stayed with me till the sheriff got there so that they can help me. And then they called me a tow, and I got home just fine. And even though the pressure was still a little bit there, my mind was at ease, right? Because now I recognize it as an Ascension symptom. And I got to meet some beautiful people, the beautiful EMTs, the two sheriff's officers that stayed with me till the tow truck came, the tow truck guy that came. I met some great people, and I was in great spirits the entire time. While I was out there by myself, it was dark, and I can see all the stars, so I just meditated with the stars. I just didn't give in to that thing, right? But the point of this is, you have to get yourself checked out. If you really can't identify it and it's not going away, and you worry yourself about it, it's better to err on the side of caution and go get yourself checked out, even if it turns out to be an Ascension symptom. So again, this was an Ascension symptom for me, and the way to identify it is what's been going on. If you work with energies, what are the energies around you and how are they shifting? What changes have you made to your life recently, right? First identify, have I made any major changes recently? Has anything dropped off? Have I stopped watching certain videos? Have I stopped watching television? What have I done lately, right? That's an upgrade, right? So that's your first clue. If you've been doing something recently that's been an upgrade to your spiritual journey, then you may be having an Ascension symptom and not a heart attack, or ICP, intracranial pressure bleeding, or whatever. And I'm making light of it now, but in a moment I was concerned, and it's okay to be concerned, because there are certain things. I always say, don't fear anything, but use caution, right? Have concern, but don't let that, take your mind into a different place, because remember, your thoughts create. So if you think that something's wrong, then you're creating something to be wrong with you. So just be cautious. But the second thing is to really do the work, right? Identify that you think it's an Ascension symptom because you've made some changes, and then speak to your guides, right? Speak to your higher self. Speak to God. Hey, God, is there something going on here that I should be concerned about? Not worried about, not fearful about, just concerned, and just try to relax. That's the third thing, is just relax. Identify, ask for guidance, relax. Those are the first three things that you should do before you self-diagnose, before you go to Google, or whatever search engine you use to look things up. Because only you can diagnose you. And sometimes you're going to get it wrong. But it's not a bad thing either, because maybe it's something your soul wants to experience. So instead of panicking, just try to relax. Do the breathing, right? Breathe into whatever's causing you discomfort, disease, right? Dis-ease. And identify, and then again, come to the conclusion. Am I having an Ascension symptom, or is this a real emergency? And then make that decision based on what you're feeling, because it's all about your gut instinct, right? So in hindsight, I would not have gone to the hospital, but again, I decided to use caution, and again, it proved to be an Ascension symptom. Now, what is an ascension symptom, right? This is a little woo-woo, but for me, it's an upgrade. I've done a lot of work to get myself to this point. I've given up the judgments and things, and instead of spiritual bypassing, identify triggers in the moment, change them, fix my mindset about them, really identify it and work on it. Don't just say, oh, I've already done the work on that. It shouldn't be here anymore, but it is, right? So when it is, do the work again. So as you're doing those things energetically, you're really just releasing all those things that have been energetically holding you back. I suggest doing Ho'oponopono, which is the forgiveness modality, the Hawaiian forgiveness modality. Again, do those things that got you here, right? That elevated you. Yes, you've gone backwards sometimes and slide back, but you keep doing the baby steps. And the more baby steps, they start piling up, right? And then you get a reward. And you say, well, getting a pressure in your head make you feel like you're sick, is that a reward? Yes. Remember, these bodies, we're not real physical. I always say that. But everything manifests as if it's a physical symptom. So does an ascension symptom. But if you look at it as an upgrade, that those atoms and molecules, they're being changed and altered. We're being transformed, right? We're shape shifting. Some way, shape, or form, our molecular structure is going up, right? And just like a butterfly goes into the cocoons, and snakes and things and reptilians do the molting of their skins, that's painful for them too. But they know it's part of their cycle, right? Their upgrades, going from the moth, the caterpillar to the butterfly, the beautiful butterfly. What a transformation, right? So that's what an ascension symptom is. It's you going from a caterpillar to a butterfly. And yeah, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some work. You're going to have to isolate yourself. That's why going into hermit mode is beautiful. And that's the other, number 4, ascension symptom, is if you just have no desire to be around anybody, or you don't want to really do anything, and you want to go into hermit mode, and you want to connect to God more and be more in peace, be alone. That's a sure sign that you're going through an ascension. So the point of this video is to embrace those things, and recognize when it is an ascension symptom. Identify it. Call on your guides. Relax, and embrace the change. It's really that simple. But it can, if you let your mind take over, the conscious mind versus your instincts and your gut and your subconscious, then it's going to make it a lot harder for you, and it's going to cost you some money. But in the long run, that's okay, because you're worth it. If you have to spend a little bit of money by going to a medical facility just to get yourself checked out, I recommend you do it. I've done it, and I may do it again in the future. But this is the second time that I've done that, and it's turned out to be an ascension symptom. So you get to learn your body a little bit better. So now next time, I'll question it and really do go deeper and find out, hey, what have I been doing lately? What changes have I made that are causing these symptoms? And then I celebrate my upgrade, celebrate my ascension. In fact, I still didn't get that it was an ascension symptom, right? I was still a little confused about it, because I had done something to my body that would normally cause it. Other people have died from these ICPs and the over-oxygenation of the brain, or cutting the oxygen off to their brain and creating carbon dioxide poisoning or toxicity. So in that case, I had a good reason to be concerned, but I really didn't, and I'm happy that it turned out the way it did. It cost me money to get my car towed, and I'm sure I'm going to get an emergency room bill, even though I didn't go to the emergency room. But that's okay. It's something I chose to experience. And it wasn't until I was speaking to my brother, or I texted my brother, and he said, "Oh, July 5th, everybody got these. Did you get your Ascension upgrades?" And that it was the evening, the very early evening of July 5th, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, July 5th, when I decided to go to the hospital, or drive myself to the emergency room, and that was it. There it was. It was my Ascension symptoms. So I hope this video brings you some clarity. And again, it's not easy to identify. And if it really brings you concern, then err on the side of caution. But most likely it is an Ascension symptom if you're doing the work and you're making changes, and if you're really in tune with your spiritual journey and doing God's work, right? Doing your soul mission, helping others. When all those things are in alignment, just know for sure that it is an Ascension symptom, and something you should celebrate, not worry about. So celebrate your Ascension, embrace it, and look for more, right? Do more things to get you higher up. You're moving up that energetic field, right? That you're higher. It's actually your soul moving up in dimensions, and it's a beautiful thing. So embrace it, and don't worry. When you're in tune and when you're doing all the right things, it's not a heart attack. It's an Ascension symptom. So embrace it, and have an amazing day. And if you are going through Ascension and you're just getting started on your spiritual journey, or you're somewhere in the early stages and just don't understand it and need more guidance, I'd love to help you. I can coach you through your Ascension symptoms and give you some resources that you can use to help you understand it and help you get the benefits from it. Because after an Ascension symptom, beautiful things start happening for you. Everything starts coming into alignment for you. But if you start worrying about it and start fearing it, it can go the other way, right? Because it's all about choices you make in those moments. So if you need help in getting clarity and need some resources, I can help. I am a transformational life coach. The link to my website is down below. Hit me up for a free 30-minute decompression session. I'd love to help you get through your Ascension symptom and help you learn how to embrace it and identify it for the future, because there's more to come. Embrace it. And if you like the contents of this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, leave a comment, let me know your Ascension stories. I'd love to hear them. And subscribe to my channel for more content like this. More people need to hear it. People, we are in some amazing times right now. What's being projected in the outside world isn't reality, right? So if you get entangled with that, you're going to stay in low vibrations. It's time to turn off the television set, stop on being on TikTok 24/7 and Twitter, and really just start going into hermit mode. It's time. More things are going to happen. Some people are going to see it, some people aren't. Be on the front lines. You're being called for something special. So put on your armor of God and do the work, and stand in your sovereignty and your courage, and accept your Ascension symptoms and your upgrades, and everything will be perfectly fine. Don't listen to what's going on in the news. It's not real, but you are. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me.